Welcome back to Mr. Shadow's stories, where the darkness speaks and the night reveals its deepest secrets. I'm your host, dwelling in the spaces between light and shadow, bringing you tales that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Tonight, we're stepping into a world that never sleeps, a place where fortunes change hands, where desperate hopes collide with crushing despair, and where the night shift workers witness things that can never be explained. Casinos, glittering palaces of chance that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But when the crowds thin out and the clock strikes 3 in the morning, something changes. The atmosphere shifts, and those who work these ungodly hours know that not all the guests check out at dawn. Tonight, I have 3 absolutely terrifying true stories from casino night shift workers who experienced encounters they'll never forget. Stories they've tried to rationalize, tried to explain away, but deep down, they know what they saw was real. So dim the lights, lock your doors, and prepare yourself, because after tonight, you'll never look at a casino the same way again. Let's begin. Story 1. The Woman in Red. Our first story comes from Marcus, a security guard who worked the graveyard shift at a mid-sized casino in Reno, Nevada, for nearly 8 years. Marcus had seen it all, or so he thought. Fights, cheaters, people losing their life savings, and even the occasional medical emergency. Nothing fazed him anymore. He'd become numb to the chaos, the desperation, the raw human emotion that filled those carpeted halls every single night. But there was one night in October of 2019 that shattered his sense of security forever. It was approximately 3:47 a.m. when Marcus was making his routine rounds through the slot machine area on the second floor. This was typically the quietest time of night. Most of the serious gamblers had either gone home or moved to the poker tables. The slot floor was practically deserted, with maybe 5 or 6 people scattered across hundreds of machines, their faces illuminated by the hypnotic glow of spinning reels. As Marcus walked past row after row of silent machines, something caught his eye. At the very end of aisle 12, partially obscured by shadows, sat a woman in a vibrant red dress. The dress was old-fashioned, something you might see in photographs from the 1950s, fitted at the waist, flowing skirt, immaculate despite the late hour. This alone wasn't particularly strange. Casinos attract all types, and people wear all sorts of outfits. But something about this woman made Marcus pause. She sat completely still in front of a machine that wasn't turned on. Her hands rested in her lap. She wasn't playing, she wasn't moving. She was just sitting there, staring at the dark screen. Marcus approached slowly, his years of training kicking in. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" No response. The woman didn't move, didn't acknowledge his presence in any way. Marcus stepped closer, now only about 10 feet away. He could see her profile now. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back in an elegant style, sharp features frozen in an expression he couldn't quite read. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me," Marcus managed to say, though his voice shook despite his best efforts to sound authoritative. The woman in red tilted her head, studying him like a predator examining prey. "You're scared. I can taste it. Fear has such a distinct flavor, you know, sweet and bitter at the same time."
Marcus grabbed his radio, ready to call for backup. But when he looked up again, the aisle was empty. The woman had vanished, completely, impossibly. There was nowhere she could have gone in the split second he'd looked away. The aisle was a dead end, and he would have seen or heard her pass him. His hands trembling, Marcus walked to the spot where she had been sitting. The air there was frigid, at least 20 degrees colder than the rest of the climate-controlled casino. And on the screen of the machine, despite it being powered off, were words, glowing words in red. "See you tomorrow night." Marcus reported the incident immediately. His supervisor reviewed the security footage, and this is where the story takes an even darker turn. The cameras showed Marcus walking down the aisle. They showed him stop. They showed him talking. But the woman in red never appeared in the footage. The chair she was sitting in was empty the entire time. Marcus was talking to absolutely nothing. His supervisor suggested he take a few days off, concern evident in his voice. But Marcus knew what he'd seen. He knew what he'd felt. That freezing air, those black eyes, that voice. He quit the next day and never returned. To this day, Marcus won't step foot inside a casino. And sometimes, late at night, he swears he can still smell the faint scent of old perfume and something else, something rotting, something dead that the woman in red had carried with her.
Story 2: The High Roller's Curse. Our second story takes us to Atlantic City, to one of the larger casino resorts on the boardwalk. This account comes from Jennifer, who worked as a VIP host for the casino's High Roller Lounge from 2015 to 2021. Jennifer's job was to cater to the casino's biggest spenders, the whales, as they're called in the industry. These are people who could lose $100,000 in a single night and come back the next evening as if nothing had happened. Her role was to make them feel special, keep them happy, and, most importantly, keep them gambling. One of her regular clients was a man she knew only as Mr. Kovacs. He was in his late 60s, always impeccably dressed in expensive suits, always polite, always tipping generously. He visited every Friday night, arriving at exactly 11 p.m. and playing blackjack until dawn. He won sometimes, lost often, but never seemed particularly concerned about the money. It was, Jennifer assumed, just entertainment for a lonely, wealthy man. But on a Friday night in March, something was different about Mr. Kovacs. He arrived at his usual time, but he looked haggard. His normally perfect suit was wrinkled. His hands trembled slightly as he settled into his favorite seat at the blackjack table. Dark circles hung under his eyes like bruises. "Mr. Kovacs, are you feeling all right?" Jennifer asked, genuinely concerned. "Can I get you anything?" He looked at her with an expression of pure desperation. "Do you believe in curses, Jennifer?" The question caught her off guard. I'm not sure what you mean, sir." "He made a bet I shouldn't have made," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the cards being dealt. "Not here, somewhere else, somewhere I should never have gone, and now—" He trailed off, shaking his head. Jennifer didn't know what to say. She'd heard gambling addiction confessions before, but something about this felt different, darker. Mr. Kovacs played for 3 hours straight, losing every single hand. It was statistically improbable, the losing streak that made even the dealers uncomfortable. And with each loss, he seemed to shrink into himself, becoming smaller, grayer, more hollow. At 2:15 a.m., suddenly he stood up, nearly knocking over his chair.
"She's here," he whispered, his face gone completely white. "Oh God, she's here!" "Who's here, Mr. Kovacs?" Jennifer asked, looking around the lounge. There were only a handful of other guests, none of whom were paying any attention to them. "You can't see her," he said, backing away from the table. "But I can. I'll always be able to see her now. That was the deal. That was the price." Before Jennifer could respond, Mr. Kovacs bolted from the lounge, moving faster than she'd ever seen him move. She followed, worried he might hurt himself in his apparent panic. He ran through the main casino floor, weaving between slot machines and tables, drawing confused stares from other guests. Jennifer chased him to the elevators, where he frantically pressed the button over and over. "Please," he begged, though Jennifer wasn't sure if he was talking to her or someone else. The elevator doors opened, and Mr. Kovacs stumbled inside. Jennifer stepped in after him, but he held up a hand. "Don't," he said. "Don't follow me. She only wants me. Just me." The doors closed before Jennifer could stop them. She watched the floor indicator. The elevator was going up to the 20th floor, where Mr. Kovacs kept a permanent suite. Something felt profoundly wrong. Jennifer's instinct screamed to her to call security, to make sure he was okay. She radioed her supervisor, explaining the situation. Security was dispatched to Mr. Kovacs' suite immediately. They found his door wide open. The suite was in shambles, furniture overturned, lamps broken, mirrors shattered. And in the center of the bedroom, they found Mr. Kovacs. He was dead, sitting upright in a chair, eyes wide open, frozen in an expression of absolute terror. The medical examiner later ruled it a massive heart attack brought on by extreme stress or fear. But that wasn't what haunted Jennifer. It was what they found written on the mirror in the bathroom. Someone had written in what appeared to be lipstick, dark red, almost black, "The debt is paid." Security reviewed every second of footage from the hallway. No one had entered or exited Mr. Kovacs' suite except him. No one. Whatever had terrorized him in those final moments either been in his mind or had been something the cameras couldn't see. But here's what made Jennifer quit her job 3 months later. Every Friday night at exactly 11 p.m., the blackjack table where Mr. Kovacs used to play would malfunction. Cards would fly off the table as if caught in a wind that no one could feel. The temperature would drop, and dealers swore they could hear someone crying, a man's voice, sobbing and begging for mercy. The casino eventually retired that particular table, but Jennifer knew the truth. Some debts can't be paid with money, and some games, once you start playing, you can never really stop.
Story 3: The Basement Level. Our final story comes from Detroit, from a casino that sits on the riverfront. This tale was shared by Michael, who worked as a maintenance technician on the night shift for 4 years. Michael's job involved responding to mechanical issues, plumbing problems, electrical faults. Anything that broke down during the night had to be fixed quickly to avoid disrupting the casino's operations. He had access to every part of the building, including areas guests never saw. The kitchen, the counting rooms, the surveillance hub, and most relevantly to this story, the basement levels. Most large casinos have extensive basement areas, storage, mechanical rooms, archives, server farms. This particular casino had 3 basement levels, though the third was rarely accessed. It contained mostly abandoned equipment from previous renovations and old casino supplies that no one had bothered to clear out. One night in November, Michael received a work order that made him pause. It was a temperature alarm from B3, the 3rd basement level.
A freezer unit was reporting abnormally high temperatures and needed immediate attention. This was odd, because Michael knew for a fact that there were no active freezer units on B3. Everything down there had been disconnected years ago. He assumed it was a computer glitch, but work orders had to be verified and cleared, so he grabbed his toolkit and headed down. The descent into the casino's basement levels always felt like entering another world. The sounds of the casino, the bells, the music, the crowd noise, faded with each floor until B3 was wrapped in absolute silence. The lighting was poor, with many of the fluorescent tubes burned out or flickering intermittently. Michael made his way through the maze of corridors, following the signs toward the old storage area where kitchen equipment had once been kept. The air grew colder as he walked, which struck him as odd. The climate control down here was minimal at best. He found the freezer unit in question, an industrial walk-in that hadn't been used in at least a decade. But the digital display on the exterior was indeed showing an error, the temperature reading fluctuating wildly from below 0 to over 100 degrees. Michael approached the heavy metal door and pressed his ear against it. He could hear something inside. A humming, low and constant, almost like someone was singing or chanting very quietly. Every instinct told him to call someone else, to get backup, but he was the only maintenance person on duty, and the work order needed to be completed. He gripped the handle and pulled. The door swung open with surprising ease, revealing the dark interior of the freezer. Michael's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating frost-covered walls, despite the unit supposedly being off for years. And then he saw them. Playing cards. Thousands upon thousands of playing cards were scattered across the floor of the freezer, covering every inch in a carpet of hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. And in the center of this bizarre scene stood a blackjack table, an actual casino blackjack table, complete with felt surface and chip rack. Sitting at the table were 3 figures. Michael's hands went numb with fear. The figures were dealers, or they had been once. They wore casino dealer uniforms, name tags still pinned to their vests, but their skin was blue-white from cold, their lips purple, their eyes glazed and staring. They sat perfectly still, cards held in frozen fingers, as if they'd been caught mid-deal and simply left there. "What the hell?" Michael whispered, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. That's when one of them moved. The dealer on the left, her name tag reading Sandra, slowly turned her head toward Michael. Her neck made a horrible cracking sound, ice crystals falling from her hair with the movement. "Would you like to play?" she asked, her voice somehow managing to carry, despite her lips barely moving, frozen as they were. Michael screamed and stumbled backward, dropping his flashlight. The beam spun across the floor, creating wild shadows that made the frozen dealers appear to move and shift. He scrambled for the door, his tools clattering to the ground in his panic. As he reached the threshold, he heard all 3 voices now, speaking in unison, that same hollow, frozen tone. "The house always wins. The house always wins. The house always wins." Michael slammed the door shut and ran. He didn't stop running until he reached the ground floor, bursting into the security office, wild-eyed and incoherent. His story was met with skepticism until they checked the personnel records. 3 dealers had gone missing from that casino in 1987, nearly 35 years earlier. Sandra Hayes, Robert Chen, and Marcus Williams. They disappeared during a night shift and were never found. The case had gone cold decades ago, filed away and forgotten. Security accompanied Michael back to B3, armed and prepared for anything. But when they opened the freezer door, it was empty. No playing cards, no table, no frozen bodies, just an empty, decommissioned freezer with a malfunctioning temperature sensor. But Michael knows what he saw, and he knows what he heard, and when he gave his 2-week notice the next day, it wasn't the only one who quit. 2 security guards who had reviewed the footage from B3 quit the same week, because while the cameras inside the freezer didn't show anything unusual, the hallway camera caught something that defied explanation. It showed Michael running from the freezer room, and it showed 3 shadows following him. Shadows that moved independently of any light source. Shadows that reached for him with elongated fingers before dissipating at the doorway to the stairwell. The casino sealed B3 permanently shortly after. Official reason? Structural concerns. But the night shift workers know better. They know that some games never end, some dealers never go home, and some debts are paid in ways that have nothing to do with money. 3 stories, 3 encounters that defy rational explanation. Marcus and the woman in red, Jennifer with the cursed Mr. Kovacs, and Michael with the frozen dealers are still working their eternal shift. These are the types of experiences that night shift workers live with. Memories that resurface at 3 in the morning, shadows that seem to move just beyond the edge of vision, sounds that have no source. The casino industry thrives on hope and chance, but sometimes what you find in those glittering halls has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with forces we were never meant to understand. If you work a night shift anywhere, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you see something that shouldn't be there, don't convince yourself it was your imagination. And if you ever find yourself alone in a place that should be empty, remember, you might not be as alone as you think. Thank you for joining me tonight here at Mr. Shadow's Stories. If these tales have sent a chill down your spine, if they've made you question what lurks in the darkness, then my work here is done. But the shadows have many more stories to tell, and I'll be here, waiting in the darkness, ready to share them with you. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a nightmare. Hit that notification bell to ensure you're always ready when the shadows speak again. Share your own terrifying experiences in the comments below. You never know, your story might be featured in a future episode. Until next time, keep your lights on, keep your doors locked, and remember, the darkness is always watching. This has been Mr. Shadows, signing off. Sweet dreams, if you can still have them tonight.